sound, style and attitude of Canada's Avril Lavigne has heated up the dire candy floss climate of mainstream pop. This is a young woman who captivates her listeners with powerful music from her heart and soul. Her songs reach out for a new generation of disaffected teenagers with a healthy dose of angst and attitude. Avril Lavigne takes it seriously.
As much as we don't want it to be and as much as I hate it, it's business. And it's not just like, oh, good to go rock out on stage and sign autographs and like riding limos. It's like airports, no sleep, it's like contracts, it's like this and this, you can't do this, you can't do that, tomorrow you gotta do this and this and this and this.
She brings a totally different perspective into the pop scene. She talks about, in Complicated, about how a clique should not define you, who you are, and really connects with the teenagers of today.
She had an outstanding voice. She had definitely had talent. I felt she would be able to go places, maybe not as far as she's gone. You never expect anybody to do that well, especially in a small town, but she's done excellent.
Basically, I was reading somewhere that you get a lot of marriage proposals through flowers.
Yeah, I read that too, and that's not true.
Not true at all?
No, you'll read things that aren't true.
There's people make things
I've
up.
had, and they turned it into all the time.
She said no to me.
The engineer and I have done many recording projects together throughout the years, and we just turned to each other and said, we are fortunate to have been here this night. This is the beginning of something.
People that heard Avril in plays and would see her at the church and things like that thought she was a very talented young individual, but I don't think at the time anybody maybe thought it was anything beyond being a talented individual.
When we saw what she had, we knew that she was capable of doing it, just making all the connections, connecting all the dots in a row.
I think that we were certainly surprised by the speed at which she rose to such a high level of success. But Avril was one very determined young lady, and I never had any doubt that she would be successful in the recording industry. She certainly had the talent. She had the plans in place to help support that talent, and she had the drive to work hard at it to make it happen.
When she's on stage, when she's writing, when she's doing her music, she's in heaven, because that's what Avril is all about.
I listened to her vocals and sitting out on the couch listening to her sing by herself with an acoustic guitar, you hear the difference than the average really good musician. There's just that extra little bit of magic and emotion and touch in her voice that it isn't in everybody. It's not in everybody.
For such a young artist with only one album under her belt, the media interest in Avril is staggering. Her fan base reaches across the globe, and with a combination of talent, looks and attitude, it seems certain that the skater girl from Nappanee will be with us for years to come. Born on the 27th of September 1984, Avril Lavigne was raised in the small middle-class town of Nappanee, Ontario in Canada, where her father worked for the local phone company. There weren't many ways of entertaining oneself in rural Nappanee, but Avril loved tomboy pursuits, such as baseball in the summer and hockey during the fall and winter. But it was always music that would bring the family together.
Well, I got my start in church, and kind of branched out from there, and when I started singing secular music, I remember my parents just kind of were like, sing these nice songs. And so I was singing like those kind of songs, like new country, like Faith Ocean and Twain kind of songs. But then after, when I started writing my own stuff and whatever, it was more like this, rock pop.
Nappanee's a pretty typical town, I think, in Ontario. It's a small town. We're very rural. We have a lot of farming communities around us. We amalgamated a few years ago with some of the outlying areas, so lots of farms, lots of construction type jobs. But I think it was, you know, it's a fairly typical small town. I imagine we have a skateboard park, and there's some kids that, you know, the town put that in a few years ago, and so kids skateboard there. And but I would imagine that, like any typical teenager, it's you often have to make your own entertainment.
Avril Lavigne's surrogate grandfather and neighbour, Claire McLaughlin, remembers her with great affection.
Avril, when she was growing up, from the time I first met her when she was 7, was a quiet, not shy, but quiet child, and always very determined. Avril, I think, looked at me as a grandfather and as a friend, and when she comes home, I always get a big hug, and I enjoy that very much.
I think Avril, growing up, there were lots of avenues where she sang at the church, and she sang at the local fairs, and did some outside concerts down at the park. And there were things like that where we've had a pretty active music scene in terms of a local theater and people getting kind of, but again, like a small community, it's been driven from the community itself. The local people got together and said, let's have music in the park, or churches have done lots of variety shows, and Avril would participate in those.
Soon, Avril graduated from singing in her bedroom to performing wherever and whenever she could in the local community. She started belting out impassioned gospel songs in church, and later country and western music at local festivals.
We used to go to local fairs. Every thing that was going on, you know, like around, that had an opportunity to sing, she would be singing at. And so we followed her, and her dad used to take a camcorder, and we'd go and watch her and hear her sing. And she was singing country and western at the time, and so that was when we first really noticed that she was going to be singing. She knew all along where she was going, but that was the first that we knew that she really wanted to do this music thing.
Walk into a Gothic store now reminds me a little of what they said hell would look like. It claims it has quality.
I saw her in a play at the Selby Theatre several years ago, and in Godspell, and she did a great job. And it was that kind of stuff that I think she kind of found that. But she apparently, talking with her parents, just loved to do this from the time she was a little girl.
The country music styles of Shania Twain and the Dixie Chicks were Avril's early influences. Her father was always keen to help Avril pursue her musical career, spotting her talent right from an early age. So, at the age of 8, he felt it was time to buy her first guitar.
When I first knew Avril, she was probably 8 or 10 years old and was just starting to sing in church, at plays, that type of thing. And she bought a new acoustic guitar from us. She was in with her dad. It was a solid top Yamaha guitar, acoustic. Well, my first impression with Avril was that she had an outstanding voice. She definitely had talent. I felt she would be able to go places, maybe not as far as she's gone. You never expect anybody to do that well, especially in a small town, but she's done excellent.
Avril's first big break arrived in 1998, at the age of 13, when she won a talent contest organised by Ottawa radio station Country 96 FM. The prize was the opportunity to sing with her biggest musical idol, Shania Twain. Sue Gordon from the station was credited with discovering Avril.
We had hundreds and hundreds of CDs and tapes and videos, And I guess what the mandate was of the promotion is that we weren't looking for anybody professional. So we did have some very good singers, very mature singers and polished, but we weren't looking for those kinds of people. We were looking to give a young, actually Shania Twain was looking to give a young amateur want-to-be perhaps the chance of a lifetime. When Avril came in, she just had that sound. It was a fabulous sound. It was raw, and it was terrific. It was just what we were looking for because, as I say, she was on pitch and she sang very confidently. The quality of the tape wasn't terrific, of course, and that's what made it even more refreshing. And so yes, it did stand out, and yet she was in among some very talented other people as well. She just had what it took, I think. After the selection process, and we had decided that Avril was the gal, I was co-hosting the morning show on Country 96, so my co-host and I decided to call the family up live on the air that morning and make the announcement that it was Avril Lavigne indeed that had won. And of course you heard the screeching in the background, and I don't know if it was her actually or her parents who are very supportive of her career. So we called her up live on the air and put her on, and she was thrilled to death, and it was a complete surprise. She had no idea, and in fact just in her presentation of her tape, it wasn't anything, there wasn't any fanfare. She's always been fairly understated, but very confident.
Well, I remember Sue Gordon from Kingston radio station holding the contest, and we were holding our breath. Then when she won the contest, of course, we were very pleased, and I think we were really excited when she got to perform with Shania in Ottawa. That was her first big, really big thing for Avril.
Walking on, feeling like words of a song.
Local journalist Amy Pianozzi was contacted by Avril's proud parents to ask if she would like to write a story on her winning the competition to sing with Shania Twain.
When I first heard of Avril Lavigne, I was working for the Nappanee Guide, which is where I work now, and her folks phoned me up and said, look, our daughter won this contest and she's going to sing with Shania Twain. Do you want to come and do a story? And I said, sure. I got a chance to interview her then at home about how she practiced at home, and she talked about how she would stand in her bedroom and sing, and she had entered this tape in this contest, and she was really excited, and I asked her if she was nervous, and she said no, she just likes to sing, so she had a lot of self-confidence.
The confident, self-assured performance gave Avril her first tangible taste of stardom.
Well, my first meeting with Avril was to take her and her mom to the Corral Centre and to put her on stage. So of course, under those conditions, you would think that, you know, you're really meeting somebody who's probably nervous, very anxious, full of anxiety, perhaps, you know, my knees were knocking for her. I couldn't imagine what she was going through, and yet that was not the girl I met. I met a very confident, well-composed, a very mature girl who just believed in what she could do, obviously. And so she was very much looking forward to meeting Shania beforehand, but didn't really get that opportunity. So the first time she actually made any connection was in front of 30,000 people, because of course Shania was well briefed and pulled her up on stage at the appropriate time. Up she went and kicked right into gear and got a standing ovation.
And Shania had this little interview with her on stage. And what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a singer, says Avril. Oh yes, that's very nice, says Shania. And of course, Avril's gone on to great heights.
Being out on stage and having a whole bunch of people screaming for you and getting a high off being on stage is exactly what I thought it would be, but of course I didn't know what the whole traveling side of it would feel like and the whole promotional side. which is the work part, but overall I'm happy with it and it's cool.
It set chills down my back because she earned it. She earned every bit of it. She did a fabulous job, and Shania Twain actually gave her certainly a huge round of applause and recognized that she did it. She did a great job. Afterward, we had the opportunity to go backstage and meet with Shania Twain, and that's when Avril got her chance to have a little chat, and Shania again commented on what a great job she did, and I think put her on a high probably for a year to come. It was an amazing thing. Just right then and there, her career took off, and she actually chased after a dream.
Everyone around Avril at this time could see her incredible talent, but no one would have dared dream that the teenager from Nappanee was about to become one of the great musical sensations of the new decade.
It's just a name on a wall.
News of the young Avril's talent spread like wildfire within Nappanee's music community, and local country and western musician David Archibald was one of the first people to recognise her remarkable voice.
I mean, you could see that she was totally immersed and involved in music. That's what she lived for. And she just loved getting the backing karaoke type tracks from her dad, who would shop all over trying to get the latest Dixie Chicks tune or that sort of thing, so that she could sing along with it. But then he was thinking he should put a band together for her, and so 3 other musicians and I formed, I guess, one of her first bands anyway, and we went out and did a few gigs with her, backing her up, fall fairs, that sort of thing. Sometimes for promotional purposes, it would just be the 2 of us, acoustic guitar and Avril. And I think she shines as much in that situation as with a full band, because her voice is the star, and our job as band members is just to make that star shine, and it's not difficult.
As an 11-year-old, Renee Archibald had the chance to sing with 15-year-old Avril, something she'll remember for the rest of her life.
We sang together at the Norwood Fair, and I don't know, it was really interesting because she had never, she wasn't famous yet. She was just herself, and she had an amazing voice, and I felt honored that I got to sing with her because, she was 15. I was only 11, so 15 seemed really, really old. So I felt very special, I guess. And so we sang a song called Kiss Me together by Sixpence None the Richer. And it's not really a country tune, but it was sort of in that genre.
And she really started listening to country music. I think that some of the female country artists were a great influence, certainly in her singing, and now in her songwriting. Of course, she's definitely had some other influences, but country music, I think, started her down that road, and she sang the country songs very, very well.
Avril's kind heart even showed through in competitions, where she would help and encourage newcomers to the local music stage.
The first time I ever competed against Avril was in August of '98, and we were at the Nappanee Fair they have an annual talent competition, and I believe we were in the 10 to 18 age group, and she was just amazing. I'd gone to the practices with her, and she was just kind of giving me tips because she'd done it before and it was my first time, so I was new to it, and she was giving me tips of, just be careful with this, and she's like, you've got a great voice, and she was just showing me things to do on stage. And then I remember after I performed, she just came up and gave me a big hug, and she ended up getting 3rd or 4th, I can't remember which, but she was just amazing, and she should have got 1st. But I guess the judges disagreed, but she was just so good about, like, she wasn't a poor loser and she wasn't like how I won. Like, she was very down to earth and just accepting of everybody, so it was kind of nice. It was a good experience.
Avril's love of performing and singing in front of crowds stemmed back to her school days when her dream of making it as a singer began.
I just remember Avril Lavigne as being the school star. She was always performing at assemblies. We usually had about 3 or 4 a year. She was always involved and always sang country and was always really well received by her peers and by the staff and everybody.
Her stage presence, even then, 99, 2000, was very self-assured. There wasn't a lot of banter back and forth between the crowd, not a lot of give and take, but she was very confident and just delivered the songs with a little introduction about usually who wrote the song and who performed this song, if it was a cover tune, that sort of thing. And she used to sing a song that I wrote, so that was neat to have her do that live.
Avril's remarkable voice, music and songwriting gifts, combined with a great deal of self-confidence, provided her with the key ingredients of becoming a superstar. And everyone knew about it, particularly her family.
Our families are really excited. My parents are in my family are really excited and happy for me because they know how much I've wanted this, and their parents know they wanted to do this, and everyone's just excited.
I happened to be present at Avril's very first recording studio experience ever, which was just a special moment in time. And her instincts were phenomenal. We did a little sound check and said, okay, we're going to start at the beginning. We might make changes in here, but just go through the song and then we'll work on it. So, we pressed play, she sang the song, and it was just jaw-droppingly perfect. Her instincts were so great, as if she'd been singing professionally for years and years, and I don't know, the intonation was perfect. And at the end, you just push the talk back button, and I said, well, Avril, you can do that again if you want, but you don't really have to. Well, Avril's voice was just remarkable. We knew that first night in the studio, this was something special. The engineer and I have done many recording projects together throughout the years, and we just turned to each other and said, we are fortunate to have been here this night. This is the beginning of something. I don't know, her voice just had an authority, a confidence beyond her years. It was just there. This is what I do. I can sing this song, and here's how it goes. So she can take a lyric and make you believe it.
She really had her way of standing out. There's just something special about her. I mean, besides her voice, she's just amazing. She can belt anything out, and I know I've heard stories in the community that she got an opportunity to record a song and she got it her first take, which is something very rare. Usually it takes singers over and over, but that's just the way she was. If she put her heart into it, she was going to get it.
I think any musical artist, it was just, you have to be unique, and she had that unique voice. She didn't sound like anybody that she was singing the songs for. She sang Shania Twain. She didn't sound like her though. She had her own personal touch to put into the songs. And I think that's really what a big part of where she is now is that she is her own individual person. She doesn't sound like anybody, and she does have her own style of music, which is very good.
I listened to her vocals and sitting out on the couch listening to her sing by herself with an acoustic guitar, you hear the difference than the average really good musician. There's just that extra little bit of magic and emotion and touch in her voice that it isn't in everybody. It's not in everybody.
With the continual backup and support of her parents, the 15-year-old Avril started sending tapes to various record companies in North America. At the same time, her friend and huge fan, Dave Archibald, was so impressed with what he was witnessing that he approached EMI.
I knew this was something special, so I called up a friend of mine at EMI in Toronto, Mike McCarty, who's president of EMI Publishing, I think, in Toronto. And I said, Mike, I don't know, but just remember this name, Avril Lavigne. She's 15 years old, but I think this is a voice that's going to go somewhere. And I think EMI was involved in the initial rounds of trying to sign Avril, but in the end didn't get her. But yeah, I thought she had all the ingredients, because she had the poise and the voice and the look, and just it was all there.
Now aged 16 and having left school, Avril took herself off to New York to get inspired and write. It was there that she attracted the attention of Canadian-based management company Network. They arranged for Avril to meet up with some other songwriters and began work on a demo tape with producer Peter Zizzo. But remarkably, she was signed before she even had the chance to finish it. A representative of Arista Records visited Avril in the studio and was knocked out by her voice and obvious musicality. He returned soon after with the label's head, Antonio L.A. Reid, who was amazed by the discovery. Seeing an inner confidence and will to succeed, he immediately signed the 16-year-old Avril to a contract in the autumn of 2000. Stunned by the sudden interest in her, Avril briefly fled back to Canada, but returned to New York more determined than ever to embark on her professional career. Amazingly, this girl just barely out of school thought nothing of this major upheaval in her life and plunged herself wholeheartedly into the creative process. Avril began working on some tracks, surrounded by an army of technicians and producers. On hearing the first mixes of the sessions, however, Avril put her foot down and kicked up a fuss. She complained that the song sounded too poppy, obviously formulaic with too many programmed drums and no spontaneity. She wanted a rockier, earthier sound, a million miles away from the commercial slush she was hearing. Most importantly, although she'd been signed to Arista as a vocalist, she balked at the thought of singing someone else's songs and insisted on having a hand in the writing process, and amended her contract to allow her to compose her own material. She also rejected suggestions that she should have her teeth bleached and wear something sexier than her trademark outfit of baggy pants, vest and necktie. Although she never considered quitting, she went through a torturous time of stress and uncertainty. Most teenagers on such a handsome contract would have kept their heads down, sucking up to the suits, but not Avril. After throwing a few tantrums in the studio, she took herself off to LA, found new producers and warned them of all her concerns and suspicions. Everyone stared at her as if she was mad, but she got her own way right down the line. Here in LA, Avril found the perfect working conditions, teaming up with producer-songwriter Cliff Madness. The pair quickly gelled as a creative force and were soon recording the now famous tracks that would make up Avril's first album, Let Go. Within a few months, the songs from the debut album had taken shape and were ready for public consumption. Avril couldn't wait to get her music out to the world. She knew the songs were really strong and didn't sound like anything else that was coming out. Yet, she didn't know if anyone else was going to like it.
I called it Let Go because that's what I felt like I did during the process of making the record. I had to take a big step and leave my family and and my friends and let all that go, and writing all the songs and just getting so much out of me emotionally. I just felt like I let go of that thing.
First time I heard of Avril Lavigne, I was sent a 4-song EP from Terry McBride, who just said, "Look, you've got to hear this girl, she's amazing. And I do remember that Complicated was one of the 4 songs. And I'd love to say I was impressed. I wasn't. I thought it was okay, but I also thought we were almost at the end of that trend of, you know, female pop stars, you know, as personified by whether it was Britney or who else it was. And I didn't see the context of it within the 4, to be honest. When I got the package of the marketing plans for the album, it had sort of a breakout and a bio and things like that. I saw these wonderful photographs of her taken, you know, on the streets of New York, and they were quite incredible. And I thought, boy, now this could be interesting.
Eager to capitalise on her newfound fame and acclaim, the Let Go album was unleashed to the public on the 4th of June 2002. Larry was one of the first music journalists to interview her.
Arista in New York was so nervous about putting her with me doing an interview, because at this point she'd basically been going in the radio stations, you know, with her and her guitar player, doing very light interviews and singing a song. They'd never done a serious interview. She was fine. She's actually quite funny. I was very, very, very nervous, very preoccupied.
The first single to be released from the album was the track Complicated. Radio stations quickly picked up on the single, generating a huge buzz that would eventually lead Complicated to #1 in the Canadian charts.
Complicated, I think, is one of the best pop songs that I've heard in a number of years. I like her youth, her zestiness, sassiness, if you want. She breaks the boundaries. When I was doing the first interview with her for Billboard before it came out, I was talking to L.A. Reid, and I said, this is going to blow up big. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, you know, the kids out there in pop music, they know they can't be, particularly the young girls, they can't be Britney Spears. Britney Spears is like the class cheerleader. But the thing with Avril is she is like the average girl sitting in the back of the class in grade 10, chewing gum going, I am so effing bored. And I said, a lot of kids are going to identify with that, particularly in small towns, but even in larger towns and like that. And he said, you know, I think you're probably right.
For a debut CD, Let Go is a staggering achievement. The songs are a blend of adolescent despair and look at me rage. Avril hits the senses with an all-out attack of snarling, tenacious punk pop, flaunting her sassy vocals with impeccable guitar work. One East Coast punk pop singer who was impressed with the album was Lizzie Hale.
When I first heard her album, I was particularly blown away by the uniqueness of it and the fact that it definitely was not your normal pop rock star. I enjoyed the realness of it, and I enjoyed the fact that you can tell that she's doing something that she loves. And it's not, you know, she's not trying to be anything but who she is. I do have to say that my favorite song would be her first single, Complicated. It just even apart from the musical end of it, the musical end is, you know, like I said, it's catchy, it's fun, it was stuck in my head for days.
I love Complicated. I thought it was a wonderful pop song. Skater Boy, I've heard it one more time, and I think that's probably one of the most honest songs down to earth. I think it's probably the song probably closer to her in many ways. The concerns that she was singing about in the songs, whether the lyrics are hers or whether they're one of the people that she was working with, or whether it was a combination of both, certainly struck a chord.
Skater Boy, is that based on a personal experience? I mean, because I know you say you're writing the song with him now.
I get asked this question all the time, and I have the question memorized, so I'll tell you what I say every time. I wrote that song about a high school experience. Like how I saw people treat each other, without trying to put people in categories or whatever, label people. I was like a skater in high school, and some other types of people, kind of look down on that because you wear baggy clothes or whatever. And I don't know, I just kind of wrote about that, and there's just like a message in there. It's basically just saying, don't try to impress other people. Go with how you feel, and you know, it's better to do that so you don't miss out on stuff. And that's how I try to live my life.
She addresses important subjects such as, you know, you don't have to be something just because someone tells you to, or because it's, you know, popular, or because, you know, it's the thing to do. Do something that makes you happy and pave your own way.
It seems to me that she has a little bit of a country music background, but I also hear some raging rock and roll influences, and then again I hear some very very kind of romantic, sexy pop R&B sensibility, and it's all kind of mishmashed into a thing that is Avril.
Her voice is very eclectic. It's a mixture of different things, and I like the fact that it varies from song to song, and definitely has a unique style. It's not pop, but it's not folk, but it's not rock, and I think it's just an eclectic mixture of all those things, and it shows that I think that she listens to a lot, and she isn't trying to put herself into a specific genre.
She is her audience. It's the first time in a long time that you have an artist merging, you know, at the same time, that she is exactly what her audience is. They are her, and I think they can, and I think everybody's missed the idea of why she is as big as it is, because there are kids saying, I can do that, or I identify with that, or I have a lot of those same problems. Most of the audience knows that they can't be Britney Spears. Britney Spears is the guy that went out with the quarterbacker, or went out with the guy when she was, you know, in the last year of high school. She went with a guy that was in college who had the fast car. Well, you know, Avril wasn't that person, and if you look at her background, she certainly wasn't that person. And there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of angst there, there's a lot of teenage rebellion there. Well, hey, well, you're just describing anybody in a small town.
Let Go is rich, varied, eclectic in style, slickly produced and crammed with a host of killer songs. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but manages to pull off the difficult trick of being playful yet in your face at the same time.
Not often on pop music do you nail a feeling and a sentiment of an audience that felt, quite frankly, like it wasn't being serviced within the industry. You know, they weren't being serviced by Britney. Most of them would not have known about, say, Annie DeFranco. You know, some of them would. Annie DeFranco's not a mainstream pop artist, but here's an artist, you know, quite frankly, that comes up through the middle with lyrics and songs that speaks directly about them. How often does that happen? Not very often. I think there's two sides to Avril's music today. The one side is what you saw first, and that's obviously what you saw and heard on the album. However, you know, you have to remember she has now been playing that music for some time in the public. It's changed. They matched her with a very, very young and rough and untried and untested band that went out and played in very much a punk pop rock style, if you wish. So I think you're seeing somewhat of a change.
2002 became a landmark year for Avril as her career took off into the stratosphere and her debut album hit the 8 million mark worldwide. Avril's career was on a high and looked set to soar and soar. Avril's journey from gospel to skater punk has been astounding. Her hometown of Nappanee are rightly proud of their prodigy.
During the fall of 2001, everybody in Nappanee had heard, we'd heard Complicated, then we were starting to hear Skater Boy, and wherever you went, people were talking about Avril. The stores started to be putting up displays, so you walk into Marie's Place, downtown Nappanee, which is our music store, big poster of Avril. You go into the Watch Chalet, which is a jewelry store downtown, big poster of Avril.
I don't think we realized how big she was in other parts of the world as much as, you know, people were saying, oh, in Europe she's huge, and, you know, and it was really breaking in a lot of areas where we were kind of like, well, it's Avril, you know, and she's talented, and, you know, but I don't think the community caught up as fast about just how popular she really was.
And she was talking about Nappanee, which is, I guess, one of the things that got people really excited, because wherever she went, she sang about it in her album, In My World, and then whenever she was interviewed, she said she was from Nappanee. She never said she was from Canada or Ontario, she always said Nappanee. So that was exciting for people.
Avril's school principal had no doubt that this determined and gifted pupil would make it as a superstar, and is delighted by her success.
I think that we were certainly surprised by the speed at which she rose to such a high level of success. But Avril was one very determined young lady, and I never had any doubt that she would be successful in the recording industry. She certainly had the talent, she had the plans in place to help support that talent, and she had the drive to work hard at it to make it happen. So there are no surprises there. I don't think of anyone who's known her or seen her perform, but certainly it's been a meteoric rise to success, and we're all somewhat astonished by that and really happy for her about it.
I don't know, it's sort of funny because, you know, it's Nappanee. You don't really expect anything big to happen there. So it was sort of like hope for the rest of the people around this area that wanted to do that, because this is sort of like, yes, you can do that if you're from a small town of like 15,000 people or whatever.
Avril is just certainly the topic of conversation around town. I mean, I think I like to think that we, as a council, helped lead that process a little bit too, that the council was proud of her, and we made efforts to try and bring the community together to rally that support, because, again, a lot of people just didn't know how to say, you know, congratulations, Avril, you're doing a great job. I think what we wanted to say is, you know, very seldom you ever see anybody, I mean, we probably never will again in this town, see anybody reach the status that Avril has in terms of overall stardom around the world.
Before Avril became famous, she regularly ate at her favourite pizza joint, La Pizzeria in Nappanee. Bill Cosmopoulos is the owner.
The first time when they interviewed her, when she mentioned my name, I was, just, I say, wife, come here, look at this paper here, Avril. And then I called, the same day I called her house, I talked to her mother, and I said, tell Avril, because she was in New York at that time, tell Avril, I thank you very much for everything, and tell her she got a free pizza for life as long as I own La Pizzeria. When she comes home, she calls in for pizza most of the time. I talk to her on the phone. For Christmas, she came in, and I asked her if I can put her name on my menu, and she says, no problem, go ahead, and I put the home of Avril Lavigne's favorite pizza on it. And then I said, I gotta put your favorite pizza on the menu, and she says, don't forget to put, like I was inside in the kitchen, I says, just put pepperoni, mushrooms, and green olives. That's what she said, and we put it on our menu. Everybody comes and asks for, may have an Avril special, everybody, It's popular pizza. I remember her like she's the same girl like I used to know before she got big, Last time she came in, she came from the front door and says, hi guys, how are you? Big hug, and stuff like that. To me, she's down to earth, she's nice.
Like most people around Avril, her parents still can't quite believe her phenomenal achievement.
Avril's parents I don't think they've really understood what's going on, although they're very proud, as I am. We're all very proud of her and happy for her, but I don't think it's really hit home that she is as big as she is.
Her parents are just so pleased of Avril's success. I think that they always thought that Avril would want to do this, that she would want to, you know, she just said from the time she was young, I'm going to do this, and, you know, I hope you're behind me kind of thing. And the parents are tremendously supportive.
I think they too, like me, they just don't think, wow, that's our little girl up there, you know. It's moved very fast. The whole thing has moved very quickly. I'm sure it has for Avril as well.
By music industry standards, one album and a few singles doesn't ensure longevity. Avril spent the early months of 2003 hitting the studio again, working on material for her all-important second album. Ron Allaire, co-owner and engineer of Skyline Studios in Manhattan, New York, has been working with her during this time.
I first met Avril the day before her 18th birthday on September 27th of last year, which would have been 2002. She came in to work on new material for a record that hasn't come out yet, a producer named Butch Walker. My first impression of her was that she was pretty serious about what she was doing, and that she knew that she had a task before her. And at the same time, she was going to be working with a producer that she had looked up to. One of the reasons she wanted to work with Butch was because of his record that he had done for their record company, Arista Records, that they're on together. And I think she was a little bit nervous, but she was serious, and she knew she was very happy to be in the studio with Butch, and she was ready to get down to business. There was not a ton of people hanging around. It wasn't like she was running around and not working. She was dead serious about what she was doing. Seeing her in a recording studio, it kind of runs the gamut of the emotions that you see people going under, especially an artist like that, where her record was huge when she came in here. And she comes in here and she's being dead serious about getting work done. But then the next day was her birthday, so I could hear her on the phone with her friends and family, where she's just a normal person. And then you see her working very hard, and then at the same time having to be a star. And so seeing all the different hats that she had to put on at any one time, it's just an amazing thing for anybody to be able to handle, let alone somebody who is that young. She's pretty amazing. She's pretty amazing. I could tell she was definitely serious, and she does have a drive. She had an amazing work ethic. She and Butch were writing songs together, and she was just crunching up in a room by herself, sitting there writing lyrics into her notebook and handing them to Butch, and Butch saying, I don't know about that. And she'd go back and she'd be writing lyrics and just working on it until they felt comfortable that this is what she wanted to say, and that it was going in the right direction. Also, at the same time, she's surrounded with people that are looking out for the best interest of her, and she knows their strengths and when to delegate, but she also knows when she has to get down to business. But it's basically her vocals are going on it, and her vocals, her face, it's her band, it's her record. She's completely involved, just everything. But she knows when to delegate, and what not to stress over, and also when to ask other people's opinions musically, and which is very important. Very important to be able to, because music is a sharing thing, and she did that very well.
We're still together, but all alone, and I don't see anything changing anytime soon. Miserable content.
Dare I say her vocals are sexy? You know, she's cutting vocals as a 16 or 17-year-old, and some of the emotion that comes out of it when I'm, the mode that I get to listen to the stuff in is much more microscopic than you would be able to hear with a whole band around it. and all the little different, just all little different flutters and emotions and stuff that doesn't necessarily come out in the mix of the record that we as engineers are absolutely trying to come out. When you have a rock band blaring underneath it, sometimes that stuff does not come out. So when hearing that kind of emotion, I'm able to hear some of that sort of stuff going on, and I think it's very sexy. It's very sexy. She definitely has a sexy voice. No two ways about it. My first impression of the music was that it was even a little bit more rock and roll than her last record. Her last record is kind of a cross genre of being definite pop, having a pop sensibility with rock leanings. It was a definite rock sensibility, more so than the pop.
The first album certainly was a pop album. I don't believe the future albums will be as pop styled as what they are, because she's been out there playing, and I think they'll and also they know there's not a future in staying in pop. Yeah, you can break pop, and when you break those numbers and you sell pop numbers worldwide, you do phenomenal numbers. But the problem with pop is it's like fresh bread. It stales real quickly. And Terry McBride, who manages Avril Lavigne, is no fool, and he manages other rock type bands. He'd be very aware of making sure that she doesn't stay a novelty.
Many people might be lying in wait for her to fall flat on her face, perhaps Britney amongst them. But with a growing shelf full of musical awards to her name, things are looking pretty sweet for the skater girl from Nappanee.
I'm surprised because we got, nominated for 5 categories, and I'm only on my first record, and it's just really cool.
Is there one nomination that you particularly favor that stood out?
Yeah, the best female rock vocal performance is when I found out I was being nominated for that. I was just like, oh my god, that's so cool because it's rock. And also best song, that's kind of cool.
Avril Lavigne's success signals that bubblegum pop's sticky hold is finally slipping. So why then has Avril been such a major international success?
I think the interesting thing in the music business in general is that there are lots of talented individuals out there. Very few of them ever make it to the status that Avril has, and I think it takes a combination of a determination on behalf of the artist, but it also takes a combination of having a good management team and all the right things coming into place. Obviously, Avril's had that.
I think Avril's having a ball. If you read the interviews, and I haven't read them, overseas, and I've read them here, I think she's having an absolute ball on the road. I think she's tired and exhausted and can't wait to get off and have that. But life on the road, particularly when everybody is treating you a certain way, and you're seeing this is a young girl out of a small town, Nappanee, Ontario, all of a sudden in downtown Tokyo, running around with her band in cars and running around Australia, I mean, my God, it's very intoxicating. I'm surprised she hasn't burned herself out, but I think everything you see, she seems to be having real fun. I know the one thing that she wanted to do more than anything was to play live and have her own shows. So that was a real treat as well.
I think Avril is enjoying her success very much. I think she's a little bit awed by it, although it doesn't come across when she's working or performing. But I think she's a little taken aback that it's gone so quickly. but certainly she's enjoying it. She finds it tiring. When she's on stage, when she's writing, when she's doing her music, she's in heaven, because that's what Avril is all about.
Her success definitely lies in the hearts of the teenagers and the preteens that are, trying to figure out who they are and just want to be themselves and have a lot of people around them, telling them how they're supposed to act, how they're supposed to dress, what music they're supposed to listen to. And I think that she definitely struck a chord in that age group, in the preteens to, late teens, just because that's what we stand for. We're preteen rebels. That's what we are.
Well, I thought that she was going to be famous, but I didn't have any idea that she would be this famous. Like, she's famous all over the world. And I thought, wow, she'll be great in Canada and maybe the United States, but she's famous everywhere, and that's amazing. So it was sort of like an overnight thing too. It was 1 minute you didn't know Avril, and then everyone knew Avril.
I'll always just remember her as the 14-year-old who had great hopes and great dreams and has worked very hard and has truly been focused and knew what she wanted, and certainly there have been a lot of people along the way who've seen what she had and believed in her, and she hasn't let us down. She's certainly moving forward at a rapid pace, and I think that she's it's probably second guessing. I believe that she is grounded, well grounded, certainly with her family and friends. And I hope that that keeps her grounded, and she knows that she's probably going to make the most of what she's got, which is, I think, a great sign of a very talented, up-and-coming artist. So I wish her well, and I'm sure that she's just happy to be along for the ride.
Well, I think it's great that she's doing what she's doing and like not really, I don't know, not being affected by what's being said about her and stuff like that. She's just going on with what she wants to do, and I think that's just the kind of person she is. She's determined to be exactly who she wants to be.
I think she's been so successful because she just, first of all, she can write a song. Second of all, she can sing a song. But then there's that little extra degree that it just exudes out of her. There's kind of a sparkle in her eyes that it's just not in the average everyday person. There's just that little extra edge to it that makes people a star.
Avril has the potential to become a major world star if she can maintain her current rate of development and reinvention.
We live out of a suitcase. We never get to go home. We spend every night in a different city, and we don't get home cooked meals. We eat out of restaurants, and now we can't really go public places in America or Canada because everyone knows who we are.
The future of Avril Lavigne, I think, she'll probably move into even a more mature sound. I think she'll grow within herself and definitely be up there with probably with Sheryl Crow.
Whether or not Avril has staying power, we don't know, because we're living in a pop music commodity world that is very similar to what it was in the 1950s. where teenage icons were thrown up and thrown down, so quickly. I don't think anybody thought the last wave would have been moved on so quickly. Britney, thank you. Christine, thank you.
I think Avril has a lot of staying ability, and again, that's because her music is so popular. I mean, it crosses such a range. I don't think she gears to just one age group. I think that's when I don't know a lot about the music business, but I know that, when you tend to kind of gear in on one age group, it tends to be the ones that don't last as long. I think her appeal is pretty broad, and I think Avril has the talent to grow with the music, and I think that will change as she gets older. I think that her style will change slightly, and I think her abilities will carry her a long ways. So I would fully expect she'll be in the business for a long time.
The second album certainly will be strong because of the management team that she has in Terry McBride and Shauna from Network Management and from L.A. Reid. So frankly, the second album will have some legs to it, as do most follow-up albums. Whether or not she will have a career will really come to play on her third album. Because at that point, people say, I already have 2 albums, what are you doing new? And at that point, she can't play the small town skater boy image at that point. It's like, okay, what have you done for me lately? Let's move on. What does she become? And we certainly saw the growing pains that can be of people with, Christina, Aguilera, and also with Britney.
Her sassy punkiness and down-to-earth wit place her firmly at the forefront of a new generation of female artists who at last shoot from the hip and disregard manufactured pop product.
At 14, I listened to her singing other people's songs. I listened to her doing fairly well in her singing, but now, 5 years later, she's changed, she's matured, and 5 years from now, I'm sure she'll be even better. And she's getting better and better, and with the experiences that she's had that are coming fast and furiously, I think that there'll be a great influence in her songwriting. And I think that we have not seen the last of Avril Lavigne, and she's capable of so much.
I guess you really thought he'd get to it someday. When it came to him, I guess I thought...
The future for Avril is, I have a sneaking suspicion that she's going to be an artist that is just going to have a hell of a career for 15 years, and she's going to end up in movies. Everybody's going to know Avril. She's got the name. She has youth on her side. She has the star quality. She has musical ability. She can just run the table. She can run the table. I think she's going to be around for a long time. A long time.
It was only a few years ago that Avril left the small town of Nappanee to be catapulted into international stardom. Avril Lavigne hasn't been corrupted by the bully boy tactics of a tough music industry. So let's hope that she maintains her independence throughout the coming years. The world really is hers for the taking.
It's just a name on a wall. I didn't ask for this, no, I was thrown into this life, and all the time that keeps passing me by, I'll never know